Ryan Reynolds here for, I guess, my 100th Mint commercial. No, don't. I mean, honestly, when I started this, I thought I only have to do like 4 of these. I mean, it's unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month. How are there still people paying 2 or 3 times that much? I'm sorry, I shouldn't be victim blaming here. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/save. Whenever you're ready.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
There's no better feeling than a personal win. And the State Farm Personal Price Plan can help you do just that. Talk to a State Farm agent today to learn how you can bundle and save with the Personal Price Plan. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Prices are based on rating plans that vary by state. Coverage options are selected by the customer. Availability, amount of discounts and savings, and eligibility vary by state.
Fit Nation. It's Fit Nation. It's Fit Nation.
Awesome.
Turn that bottle up and drag it, crank that jukebox up and hack it, bartender, for another round. Here's to our best bad decisions, situational conditions, and memories we all need to drown. So fill your cup, raise it up. Jump in and join the club and float this whiskey river reservoir. We're gonna spend the weekend in the deep end of the dive bar. 'Cause up in here, you're not the only love that left her lost and lonely, one who's ever swam against the tide. Thinking this is your oasis, it's the safest of places that a broken heart can find a hide. So here's a toast, coast to coast, with a big old adios to wishes wasted on them falling stars. We're gonna spend the weekend in the deep end of the dive bar. Yeah, it's just chapter after chapter of happy never after, but that's just the way the story goes. For some barstool believers, wear our heart out on our sleeves, going where the neon glows. Yeah, it's just chapter after chapter, happy never after, but that's just the way the story goes. Yeah, we're just never quite belongers, hanger-oners, way too longers, just buzzing where the neon glows. Problems, we've all got them, let them sink down to the bottom. Doesn't matter who or where you are, we're gonna spend the weekend in the deep end. The water's fine, y'all, so just come on in to the deep end of the dive bar. This dive bar, we're talking about a dive bar. Thanks, guys. Hope you enjoyed that.
All right. Welcome back to the Misfit Nation. If you've not had a chance to check out our first book, The 13-Step Guide to Success, it is available on Amazon in Kindle and paperback varieties. If you're going through a tough time or hard times, you don't have to go alone. Reach out to a friend and chat it out. If you're too embarrassed to talk to a friend or feel like you'll be a burden to them, call the crisis hotline at 1-800-273-8255. And if you're a veteran, press option 1. Please do not make a permanent solution to a temporary problem. If you're a new listener, we appreciate you joining us. Be sure to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast apps. Also download the Military Broadcast Radio app to follow our family of shows. And also subscribe to our YouTube channel, _Misfit Nation. This will keep you up to date with the latest episodes of the Misfit Nation and also allow you to hear the amazing stories of our guests. Speaking of which, our next guest has been speaking and performing on the live stage, since the age of 6. That's over 53 years ago. From Ottawa, Canada, He's an award-winning global speaker, and for over 30 years has been training and mentoring professional speakers, coaches, and nonfiction authors around the world to bring their message and expertise to the live or virtual platform in a unique and transformational way. So without further ado, let's welcome to the Misfit Nation, Steve Lowell. Welcome, Steve. How are you?
I'm great, Rich. Thanks so much for having me on. This is great.
It's a great world we live in where we can reach out and find people across the world without having to pay for big plane tickets or send expensive packages to find people. Now, the digital world makes it a lot easier for guys like me and you to connect over just basically a click of a button.
Yeah, you bet. It's been really great over this last 2 years as the world has changed and new challenges have popped up for, guys like me who earn a living standing in front of audiences and speaking, and but now this is, my audience now is a little green light on the camera.
A little green light. How are you?
Yeah.
So Steve, if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got in. I mean, I don't want to go all the way back to the age of 6 when you started on the live stage, but as far as back as you want to go to where we are now and how you got this drive and passion to do this.
Yeah, sure. Well, why don't we go back to the age of 6?
Okay.
So at the age of 6, I was like a little guitar player. I was a little skinny guy, big glasses, and I was a little itty bitty guy playing this big guitar. I could barely reach across it. But I started performing at the age of 6. And part of performing is you got to talk to the audience, you got to speak. And so by the time I was in my teens, I had my own band and we were touring the country and I was the front man in the band. And then in my 20s, early 20s, maybe 19, 20, something like that, I saw a video of a guy named Zig Ziglar. And, I'd never heard of him before, but I saw this video and I thought, this is great. I mean, here's a dude, he's on this stage. His audience isn't drunk. He's got no bandmates that are doing drugs. He's got no equipment, just him and a microphone, and he's having a great time. I thought, I want to do that. So I joined some training programs in some companies, and I learned how to speak, and then I became a professional speaker, and then I started training professional speakers. And for the last 35 years, I've been training elite professional speakers, coaches, speakers, trainers, consultants, all across the world. And that's how I got into it.
Wow. I mean, it's a quick journey from 6 till now is a quick move from playing the guitar. I can just picture like in a movie like The Interview where they have the Korean boy playing the guitar for the audience and he's real small with that huge guitar playing. That was how I was picturing when you were saying that. So excuse me if that makes me feel weird, but that's what I thought of.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it sounds like a quick journey when you tell it. But
right.
A lot of stuff happened in those years. I mean, I'm 60, so a lot of I've been on the stage now. What's that? That's 54 years. So a lot of things have happened in 54 years.
Well, a lot of things have changed, and still people are still the same. They just have different ways of being the same now. So, what was your biggest, your biggest audience you've ever spoken in front of, and how did you get that booking?
Oh boy. I don't know what the biggest one is, several thousand, 8, maybe 10,000, something like that. And there's been a few of those because part of my journey is I'm past president of what's called the Canadian Association of Professional Speakers. And there are associations like that all around the world. And so I'm president now of something called the Global Speakers Federation. And so as part of all of that journey, being with the associations and running my business and connecting with big players in the speaking business, like Jack Canfield and some others, I've had the opportunity to be in front of some large audiences, and it's been really great.
I bet the energy you feel when you're talking to the live audience is amazing. You can feel the give and take when looking into the eyes and the movement of the audience. And then when you said like earlier before, looking at the green light now, it's got to be a little disheartening knowing how many people you were able to be in front of. And I mean, you're still in front of a lot of people, but you can't really gauge what's going on. How does that feel?
Well, it certainly took some getting used to. I mean, I've been doing virtual training for a long time, but usually my virtual training is me and one other person, maybe, 2 or 3 other people. But, now I'm speaking sometimes to hundreds and even thousands of people behind that little green light. But on, the thing is with some platforms like Zoom, I can see a lot of them, right? So I've got, you can't see it here. I'm in my studio right now, but I got kind of TVs all over the place here. So I can set it up so that I can see everybody, and at least a lot of them. And so that gives it, a little bit of energy. I can look around and I can engage with people somewhat, but it's true. There's nothing like the energy of a live audience. And we're starting to get back into that now. So we've done some live gigs over the past few weeks. We have some more coming up. But I got to tell you, though, Rich, I kind of like, getting out of my chair up in my living room, throwing on a jacket, coming to my studio, doing this. And then turning around and going back, and cracking open a beer. You don't even know if I'm clothed from the waist down. You have no idea what I'm wearing down here. So
same.
Yeah, same, right? Yeah, same. So, but it's good. It's gotten really, I'm comfortable with it now. I do miss the live audience, but what's really interesting is if an organization is going to pay me to speak, they're going to pay me a lot more to get on a plane and give up 2-3 days of my time to go to their place and do all that. So they're going to pay me a lot more to do that than to do this. And frankly, we do quite well like this. So I'm really digging it. I really like it.
Yeah, I think it's one of the perks of doing the studio from home, because you open one door, you're in your studio, you close that door, you're right back and watching TV, or like you said, drinking a beer. Now for me downstairs, I have my bar. Pop open a beer or drink some bourbon and hang out, and then come right back to the studio. It's always fun. Yeah. So on your bio, it says think differently plus think differently equals sell more. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yes. So a lot of my work, Rich, is really with entrepreneurs, coaches, consultants, authors, nonfiction authors, speakers, and what I've found is, they all have something to sell. And so when you talk to an entrepreneur, especially speakers, coaches, trainers, authors, consultants, that group, they all kind of look and sound the same. And even though in their mind they're different, to the world out there, they look and sound kind of the same. And so my work is to teach them how to think a little bit differently about their market, about their audience, about their prospects and their clients, and think about their needs a little differently, and then speak differently to those needs than everybody else. So it's just a matter of changing the way they think a little bit, changing the way they speak a little bit, and it makes a big difference in the results. I'll give you an example. One of the things I'll do is when I'm in front of an audience, either a virtual audience or a live audience, I'll often ask this question. I'll say, put up your hand if you or somebody is in the market for a tennis instructor. And, and usually no hands go up. Like, I'll ask you, Rich, do you know anybody who's in the market for a tennis instructor?
I do not.
Yeah, no, you don't, right? But you know something, I'm going to guess that you do. I'm going to guess that either you yourself or somebody is in the market for a tennis instructor right now. And this is what I tell the audience, right? And I play it up a little, I say, there's 200 people here. I'm going to guess 50 of you are either in the market for a tennis instructor right now, or somebody who is. And so then I tell him about this guy named Brian. And Brian came to me about 18 years ago, and he said, Steve, I'm going to all the networking groups, I'm talking to all the people, I'm taking up all the business cards, making all the phone calls. And he said, I'm not getting the business that I need. I said, well, Brian, what do you do? He said, well, I'm a tennis instructor. And so we see what the market is for tennis instructors. I've asked that question, Rich, to audiences all over the world, and no hands ever go up, right? But what we taught Brian was, just to think a little bit differently about his market and speak a little bit differently about himself can really make a difference to how he's perceived by that audience. And so if you saw Brian today and you said, Brian, what do you do? He'd say something like this. He'd say, well, you know how sometimes kids have so much energy, they're bouncing off the walls, and the parents get so frustrated because they have no idea what to do with these kids. He'd say, well, what I do is I take kids of any age, I bring them on a tennis court, I absolutely exhaust them, and then I hand them back to their parents. And then I ask the audience, put up your hand if you know somebody who might be in the market for a tennis instructor. And all of a sudden, all of these hands go up, right? And so the point is that just by changing the way you think about what you're presenting and changing the way you present it just a little bit, and often mean the difference between I'm not interested and tell me more.
Right. And it'll boost that sale without it. Just change your perspective. We'll make the sale a lot easier for you and for the person that you're trying to help out as well. Yeah, that's outstanding. My granddaughter can definitely use some tennis lessons, I guess.
Yeah. You see, and all of a sudden, somebody, right?
Yeah. Outstanding. So you said you work with a lot of authors and consultants and such. Should the author feel like they're going broke trying to sell their book, or should they make their book sell them?
Yeah, you see, this is a big thing. And, I'm an author, and I made this mistake on my My first book that I wrote, I thought, I'm going to write this book. I'm going to sell a bazillion copies, and I'm going to be one of the richest men in the world. And of course, that didn't happen. And I think my mom bought one, and I think that was about it. So I meet so many, because of the line of work that I'm in. I meet so many nonfiction authors because, coaches and thought leaders and all these people, they all write books. They're told to write books, write a book, and that's not bad advice. It's good advice to write a book. But there's this misconception among so many of them that writing the book, is the hard part. And once the book is written, you just put it up on Amazon and people are going to buy it. And that's just not the reality for 99.9%, of people who write books now. Unless you're lucky enough to get picked up by a major publisher, and then you may have a chance of making some money with your book. But generally, people don't make money with their book, and they try to. And then what happens is they start doing things like paying for Facebook ads and and other social media ads, and they run campaigns, and they do all kinds of they drive themselves nuts just to get people to buy a $20 book. And so what I found is the value in the books for me was not about selling the books. The value in the books was about using the books to drive traffic to me as a coach and then get them into my high ticket coaching programs. So that there's a strategy I built around that about how do you actually take the book that you've written and position it as a lead magnet to you. And you take those people that come in, service them in a certain way, and then sign them up into whatever high ticket programs you've got.
Definitely. And with my first book, it was a challenge to write it. I was challenged to write it based off of posts I made during the first year of the pandemic, which was based off every month I'd make a post saying, welcome to this level of Jumanji. Because, each month there was something more crazy going on and you made it to this level. And so my daughter said, why don't you just put that into a book? And that's what I did. That's how I came up with the 13-step guide to success. Yeah. There's 13 steps because I added one at the last month, and that made it the book. But I never went into it thinking I'm going to be a millionaire. I just went into it because she challenged me and to get the voice out, at least get one person to read it. And my dad did buy it. He was the first person to buy it, and I signed it for him. So that made me feel great.
Good. That's cool. Well, that's interesting because my first book was kind of forced as well, because I was working with so many authors. 98% of my clients were authors, because authors, they write the book and then they want to get out and speak. And I was a speaker coach for many years, and I still am. And so I was working with all of these authors, teaching them how to take their message and bring it to the platform. But the problem was I always felt a little bit out of place with that group because I wasn't an author. I didn't have a book. And so I thought, well, I better write the book. And so I wrote the book and got it just sort of, got it done. And there it is. And so I've done 3 books now, and now I'm getting pressure to write another one. So I'll probably have to do that too,
Okay, I'll do it.
Yeah, fine. I'll write the book. I don't really enjoy writing. I don't know about you, Rich, but I don't really enjoy writing that much. And I enjoy it once I get into it, but getting into it, I find is really difficult to get me. How do you do it? Like, do you enjoy writing? Did you like writing your book?
I did actually enjoy writing it. I wrote blogs for a while, and throughout my career in the military, I always write down what we were doing, what we did that day, so I'd remember it in case something happened to you and other people can read it as well. So I think the challenge to write that one was to write it for others to see it. That was the only real challenge, but I enjoy writing, and I'm doing my doctorate right now, so I do a lot of writing for that, and that's different. That's different writing. That's really forced writing, and academic writing is a lot different than just writing. But I do enjoy it. I take time out at least every day to write at least a couple pages here, or maybe 10 pages at a time.
You said that you were writing while you were in the military and sort of journaling what was going on. And that's a really good thing to do, because I'll tell you, I spent a lot of years on the road with the band, and we played in places, but there's no reason for anybody to ever go there unless they're in the band playing there. And so we used to have so many strange things happen to us on the road, as I'm sure a lot of things happened to you, in the military. But what we used to tell people is, we'd have to lie to you about those stories because you would never believe the truth. Just so many weird things, but we never journaled. And looking back on that, I thought, I so wish that I had been aware enough to journal those experiences, because there would have been, some really great stories that would have been recorded there. But I just never really enjoyed writing, and I just never did it. I wish now that I had.
Yeah, I think growing up in Catholic school, they made you write all the time and do that stuff. And I guess it stuck with me. Sister Adrienne, she challenged me to write neater, she'd give me a red pen if I wrote neater. And I never got that red pen. So she said I'd become a doctor. That never happened either. I went in the military. So, but I kept writing. My first tour to Ramadi, Iraq, I think I wrote, it was probably 300 something pages. I wrote 370 pages I wrote that year just for that tour. And I had volumes in the house. I still have to decipher what I wrote because my handwriting is atrocious, but I can probably get through most of it and type it out now.
Yeah, there's a great personal manifesto for you. I mean, what a legacy that could be for you. Right.
And for those I served with who maybe didn't take any notes and just flew by the seat of their pants over there. So that's a great thing. So what's the biggest factor for you to motivated to get other speakers to get out there and become speakers or be better speakers?
Yeah. Like you have a story. I mean, you went and you served your country, put yourself in harm's way, and a lot of things happened over there, I'm sure. And you've got stories to tell. And a lot of people have stories to tell. Most people do. And what always bothered me was that so many people that I've met had very powerful stories. I mean, stories with lessons in them that could transform lives, but they didn't really have the skills or the talent to be able to present these stories to people on a platform, on a stage, or now on a screen. And there's so many courses out there that you can take on how to tell the stories, and they're all bad. I've never seen a really good storytelling course, and I've seen hundreds of them, and they're just not good. And so I watch people tell stories, and I think it's such a profound, powerful story. There's so much more that this person could do with this story, but they just don't know how. They've never been taught how. And so that was a big part of the driver for me into becoming a speaker coach. And it was just all innate stuff that I just learned on my own. And I got all kinds of neuroscience to back up everything I teach and all that kind of stuff. But the big driver for me is, if you have a story, this is just my personal opinion, if you have a story, if you've lived through something, if you've experienced something, if you've crashed through some barriers, or if you have been through some challenges, climbed some mountains, I think you have more than just an opportunity to share your story. I kind of feel like you have an obligation to share your story because, we go through these things in our lives and some of them are really horrible. Some of them are great. Some of them are really, really terrible, but we accumulate knowledge through these stories. We accumulate wisdom through these stories, and wisdom in my mind, wisdom should never be contained. Wisdom is to be shared. Wisdom is to be extended to the benefit of others. That's why we earn it. Otherwise, why were we there? I mean, what was the point of it all if we're not going to take what we've accumulated and use it to help other people and to teach other people and to share with other people? So that was a big driver for me. If you've got a story, I think you have an obligation to tell it. And I was always the guy who could help you tell it well.
Definitely. And I think storytelling is an art, and being able to figure out the reason why, the why behind the story and how to propel it out to others is an awesome thing to do. And like you said, wisdom kept inside is wisdom lost. If I don't tell my story to my daughter or her to her next line, it's just a lost story. It just stays with me, goes into wherever I go when I pass away, and no one will ever know what happened. So you have to keep sharing everything we both do in our lives.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you talked earlier that you work with a lot of entrepreneurs as well to get their stories out and maybe help them boost their sales within their entrepreneurial ventures. A lot of our audience is veteran entrepreneurs, or I would call them vetrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. What advice would you give them as they transition from wearing the boots and go into the brick and mortar or online storing or whatever kind of entrepreneurial venture they're going into?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. And I'm going to provide an answer. The honest truth is I don't really feel qualified to answer because I'm not a veteran. And veterans are in a different class in my mind, right? I mean, I'm from Canada, and we hold our veterans in very high esteem, just like they do in the US and a lot of other countries. So there's a different level of honor to the veteran audience. And so I often feel unqualified to guide them because they're in a class of their own, that they really are. But what I would do is say this, if you've got a passion that you have derived because of your service, if you've become attached to a cause, if you become attached to a legacy that you're trying to leave, if you are changed in some way because of your service, then consider turning that passion into something that you can monetize. I see a lot of veterans, even in my world, they come from the service, and then they'll go on and they'll do other things that are not related to what they learned in the service, and that's okay. But a lot of them have something inside of them that they've earned from the service. And I think if you can take whatever that is that you've earned through that experience and find a way to monetize that, because there's always a way to monetize things, that would be the advice that I would give. But I give it with hesitation because I don't really feel qualified to serve that elite group. And I don't know why. Maybe it's just a mental block of mine, So yeah, that's my answer.
Well, that's great praise for our community, and my brothers and sisters would love hearing that. And I think any advice you give them, they'll take, because a lot of that family is pretty humble, and they take all advice, and they try to write down everything they can, and then use all of it to build their toolbox and then drive forward and be better, bigger and better than they were yesterday. Yeah.
And my family is not a military family. My family is a police family. And so my entire family were police officers. And I'm the only adult male in my entire extended family never to have been a police officer. And one of the reasons why I didn't become a police officer is my father was in charge of what in this country we call morality squad, which is, I guess, kind of like Vice in the US. But he was a very high-ranking, very decorated police officer. But over the years, and I honored his work, and I wanted to be a police officer for my whole childhood. But as he became closer to the end of his career, I noticed that he became very jaded and very kind of angry. And I remember thinking, I don't want to be angry like that when I reach my 40s and 50s. And all my uncles and cousins were all on the police force, and I saw them go through a lot of different things that I just didn't want to go through. And so I kind of broke the mold, and I went into the speaking business and took a different path. But I was exposed to all of this this police work over my entire life, and so it's kind of the same for me when I talk about police officers and I talk about the military. They're different, the different categories, but the same level of honor for me.
Definitely. Our first responders here are police officers, and I've seen them go through the mental ups and downs of everything, because the things they have to see, sometimes they're the person that gets has the undue honor of having to tell someone their son or daughter has died in a car wreck, or they've seen that young kid that had something horrible happen to them, and that stays with them forever. And that's why they kind of, like your dad, became kind of jaded towards the end of his, especially the work he was doing on the morality force, like you said, is like our vice. So that sees the worst of the worst.
Well, that's it. Yeah, exactly right. Worst of the worst. And there was one police officer I trained who, he was a colleague of my father's, and he was on the police force. And as a young police officer, there was a story where this cop had shot a bad guy. It was a bank robber. He shot the bad guy because the bad guy reached into his pocket and was pulling his hand out. So boom, he shot him as he was trained. Turned out the bad guy was pulling out the money. And so he was unarmed at the time. And so this police officer went through serious post-traumatic stress disorder for years and years and years and years. But then he recovered, and he wrote a book about the entire message. Now he's built a second career as a retired police officer. He works with police departments all around the nation and other first responder organizations to build peer support programs for post-traumatic stress. And so he wrote a book, and he needed to learn how to bring his message to the stage. So like, that's one example where, somebody came to me and said, I really need to get this message out perfectly, properly. So I helped him and trained him with his speaking. So every now and then I'll get somebody that comes through like that, who has that kind of a message. And that's why, Rich, I think it's just so important that when people have a message that they've earned in a line of duty, whatever duty that is, they need to tell these stories, because there are people out there who need to hear these stories.
Right. There's always someone hungry to hear a story and learn from the trials and tribulations of your journey as you went forward. Yeah. And I'm sure everyone in the police world, or fire departments, EMS, and of course military, we have seen a lot of things that no one ever wants to see. But those stories do need to be told, and how they dealt with it, or how they made it over that bridge at the end of it, and now they're doing better things and living a productive life on the other side.
100%. Yeah.
Last question. What's the single most important secret for someone to become a rock star speaker?
The single most important secret?
Yeah.
So I think it's this. The single most important secret is to let your guard down, let your barriers down. I mean, you need to learn skills for sure. There is theater involved, and there's artistry and all of those things. But I think the most important thing is you need to learn to let people see who you actually really are. Not necessarily all the time, but when you're speaking amongst all the theater and the performance and all of the, all of those things, you need to be able to draw the curtain back and let people see who you actually really are. And that's so important, I think, because whether you're speaking on a big platform to thousands of people or even on a Zoom call like this with just a few people, they want to know who they're dealing with. And they want to know who's on the other end of this camera, who's on the other end of, the person on the stage, who's actually in there. And it's remarkably difficult for a lot of people to let that happen. And a lot of people are taught not to let that happen. They spend their whole lives, being taught, don't show weakness, don't show your vulnerable side, don't show who you really are. You need to be in character all the time, And I just think that the most powerful speakers that I know, the ones that people really love, they pull the curtain back every now and then, and they show what's really there, whatever it is, I think that's the most important thing.
I was saying, let your barriers down and go forward. That's an awesome bit of advice right there. Steve, how does someone get in contact with you to either have you on their show or to even book you to speak at an event for them?
Yeah, best way is really simple. It's my website, man, stevelowell.com. Everything is there.
Awesome. One-stop shopping. That's amazing. A lot of people make you go 8 different ways. That's awesome. One stop.
One stop. I mean, I'm all over the social media and everything too. There's LinkedIn and Facebook. I mean, I'm all out there, but it's all on my website. Go to my website. All the links are there. It's really easy.
Outstanding. Steve, thanks again for taking some of your time out of your day to day to spend with us here and the Misfit Nation.
Oh, listen, it's been my pleasure. And, I know we're from different countries, but thank you and your colleagues for your service because, it affects all of us. Yeah.
No problem. Thank you.
Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you again because a vision softly creeping left its seeds while I was sleeping, and the vision that was planted in my brain still remains within the sound of silence. In restless dreams I walked alone, narrow streets of cobblestone, neath the halo of a street lamp, I turned my collar to the cold and damp, when my eyes were stabbed by the flash of a neon light that split the night and touched the sound of silence. And in the naked light I saw 10,000 people, maybe more, people talking without speaking, people hearing without listening, people writing songs and voices never shared, and no one dared disturb the sound
You know how we do this. Thanks for taking some of your time to spend with us on Fit Nation. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and share the link as much as possible. If you want to, please become a supporter to help us carry this thing on. We appreciate you. If you know someone that brings that energy, has a great story, is an up-and-comer in the industry of music, in the arts, have them reach out to us on themisfitnation.com. We will get back to them within one day and get them on here so they can share their story with the world. As always, till next time, be humble, stay hungry, and keep hustling, because we are Fit Nation.